Hellen Keller was born with the full name Helen Adams Keller, born in Tuscumbia, Alabama, June 27, 1880. Hellen Keller was born a healthy and active girl. But a high fever when he was 1 year old made him lose his sight and hearing. Since then he has fallen into a world of darkness and silence. Thus, he has lost his ability to speak and cannot express his feelings. Keller, as Hellen Keller, kept trying to speak, but no one could understand her, including her own parents. This makes him often rage by throwing all the objects around him. Her parents, especially the mother, were very sad to see their daughters suffering. Keller's pain and suffering is simply unspeakable. No matter how hard he tries, he can't free himself from his dark world. When he was 7 years old, his parents recruited a teacher who could guide him named Anne Sullivan. Her mentor had a similar experience with Hellen Keller when she was 14 years old. Then Anne went to a special school for the disabled. Anne, who was initially blind, got her sight back after undergoing surgery. The experience triggered him to study hard and become an excellent teacher. He could understand Keller's suffering. Sullivan began correcting Keller's bad habits. Whenever Keller got mad, Sullivan just kept him quiet until Keller calmed down. Whenever Keller got angry, Sullivan just kept quiet until Keller calmed down. Sullivan gave Keller a doll and spelled the word DOLL in Keller's hand. Keller was mesmerized and instead spelled it in Sullivan's palm. That's the beginning of Keller's learning process. From then on, Sullivan always spelled out the names of things in the palm of Keller's hand. Hellen Keller was overjoyed. He quickly caught on to what Sullivan was teaching him. Sullivan then taught Keller Braille. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Little Ugly Duckling with Braille system. Gradually Hellen began to know the outside world. Hellen Keller then attended a special school. There he learned to use sign language to communicate with his friends. With his fingers he studied various topics such as mathematics, geography, history, biology, and also studied foreign languages. Keller often spends his time studying in the school library to further hone his knowledge. Hellen Keller had one more unfulfilled wish: she wanted to be able to talk. Hellen is not mute, it's just that since she was little she couldn't hear and see, so she couldn't imitate people's voices either. Keller then conveyed his wishes to Sullivan. It's a tough task for Sullivan, but he believes Hellen can achieve it. Sullivan then took Hellen Keller to see a woman who specializes in training deaf-mute students to speak. The woman then took Hellen's hand and placed it on her jaw and throat and started making sounds. The learning process is very slow and difficult. He wanted Keller to imitate him by using his hands to properly adjust his teeth and tongue in order to produce the right sound. Keller tried very hard to produce the right sound. Often he was sweating just trying to produce the right sound, even for a simple word. At home, Keller asked Sullivan to train with him. After going through a long and difficult process, Hellen can finally speak. Keller later learned French, German, Latin, and other foreign languages. Hellen expressed her desire to study at the university. Keller was then accepted into the university he wanted. During his college days, Sullivan accompanied him to sit beside him to write his course on the palm of Keller's hand. After college, Keller spent his time typing the lessons he learned in college with a Braille typewriter. Because of his persistence, Keller finally managed to graduate from university and was the first deaf-mute graduate in the world. Everyone was amazed at his achievements. Keller feels very grateful to his teacher, Sullivan. He promised to follow in the footsteps of the teacher to educate people who are deaf-blind like himself. Keller then began to make speeches and charity for those who were deaf-blind. Keller passed on his fighting spirit all along to people who shared the same fate as him. He travels the world on his mission to educate the deaf and blind.